How's it going, everybody? Give me 1 second. I'm trying to gather up some stuff here. my goodness. Alright, now that I've gathered all my stories, how's everybody doing? I hope you guys are doing well. I am so excited. You know what? Let me do this real quick. First things first. Oh, hold up. Let's do the kaleidoscope. And oh, my stuff's broken. Okay, hang on, guys. I was wondering what was going on. I was like, why is my stuff busted? Bear with me. Is it red? I think it's this one. There we go. I know. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Let's see here. Oh, I'm not a fan of that red one, though. I think I had it on purple before. Stream health is looking good. Yeah, I wasn't feeling too great, so that's kind of why I needed to take a break, I guess. Yeah, so okay, there we go. But yeah, I needed to take a day to just kind of chillax and all that good shit. The heck? Why is my... Oh, I know why. Fuck. Alright, let's adjust this a little bit more in the middle. There we go. And I'm off center with this damn. Okay. And we'll do expressions.
I will miss you forever.
It's weird for me. Ah, okay. Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm kind of testing some stuff out right now, so but if you guys want to see what I'm working on, I guess I can show you before we get started. Let's see. Make sure this is okay. Make sure this media source is doing what it needs to do. Okay. Yeah, so hold on one second. Let me move my microphone a little bit so that it can be, there we go. Let's see here. Ah, okay, so and voila. Hey, how is it? Yeah, like I said, I've just kind of been playing around. I wanted to see what I could do with some of the free stuff for right now. But yeah, check me out. don't worry, I'm not gonna read scary stories in this because that would just ruin the immersion, and we're not about ruining the immersion in this house. So yeah, I don't know how to feel about this right now. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you should have heard me earlier. Tommy was hearing me struggle bus hardcore with the damn chroma key, because it was chroma keying my eyeballs out too, and I was like, no, stop. But yeah, so I know, right? Check me out. I have transcended. Yes, I know. Until I can come up with like a way for me to either find one that's similar or kind of like close to it, I'm just gonna kind of play around with different ones and see how it goes. But I don't know, it's kind of interesting so far to see how this is going. I'm glad you guys are liking it though. Let's see, I have different expressions. There we go. I was like, oh my god, they're gonna judge me. Because it doesn't look anything like me. But yeah. It's fun. Hey Logan, how is everybody doing? Yeah, so this weird like eye tracking thing, I don't know, like it says it's tracking my eyes, but I think my eyes move too much because of how fast I read for it to like actually track my eyes properly. So we'll just have to see what happens from there. But there was a whole lot of other stuff that I was having to deal with, like trying to get my stupid camera to track my face. And then I was like having to resize the windows, and that was a whole ordeal. And I was just like, ugh, what is going on? But yeah, so that's always fun. But we have some cool stuff planned for tonight. I think I'm gonna try and squeeze 4 stories in because I don't have anywhere to like be after the stream. So I think that's what I'm gonna do, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I'm really sad that I couldn't find an avatar that like looked really similar to my normal avatar with the red hair and the brown eyes. There have been a couple that kind of come close, but they just, I don't know, stylistic wise, it just didn't fit me, I guess. Yeah, I've watched Attack on Titan, and yes, everyone always compares my avatar to that character. I forget her name. But I think her name is Hanji Zoe, I think, or Zoe Hanji. I think that's who people always compare my avatar look to. At least I'm pretty sure that's the comparison that I've seen or mentioned or whatever. Yeah, it's weird. But until I can find one or until I can get one custom made, I think I'll just kind of play around with some of the default ones that they have and go from there. But yeah, so I am, let's see, pretty excited. But yeah, I just wanted to show this to you guys. Whenever we start doing like video game stuff, this is probably what I'm gonna fall back onto, is this particular look. So I hope you guys like it. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's been interesting so far, for sure. But yeah, there's different faces that I can play with. Some I was like, and then others I was kind of like, oh, okay, that's not too bad. I can live with that. I can live with that a little bit. No big deal. But yeah, so I was just gonna give this a little test spin real quick and see what you guys thought, how you guys felt about it, and yeah, so that was my little surprise. We're going to transition back into the other screen though, unless you guys don't care about me being on screen with this avatar right now. Then I'll just keep it here until it's time for us to go back to see, this thing always has little weird messages popping up. I'm like, stop it. But yeah, so if you guys don't mind us chatting with this face on for a little bit, that's fine. But I really do just want to kind of jump straight into the stories, mostly just because I haven't been here in a week, and it's just, yeah, I missed you guys. I hope everyone's doing really well. It's good to see everyone again. Hopefully, so quick announcement. I started working on a video. I know it's been a while. I started working on a video today, and I don't know if you guys were in the Discord, but saw that I had mentioned how it's a 36-minute video, like a 36-minute story, and it took me 3 hours to edit it and put it all together. And I was like, what the fuck? What the hell is happening? So yeah, so I was like, okay, why is this such a struggle bus for me right now? I don't understand. Like, I don't understand why this is so hard for me. Because this used to be so easy. Like, it used to be so easy for me to just put out videos and get all the audio that I wanted and do all the audio engineering. Oh, hey, Angel, don't worry about being late. Don't worry about being late. But yeah, so there was like, so I was editing the video, and I was like, you guys know that I do all the bells and whistles. I put in nice video clips. I put in the sound effects, the background music. And I was like, oh my gosh, it never used to take me this long. Like, I used to be able to knock this shit out in like an hour, because I never had a whole lot of time to just, you know, sit around and record everything line by line by line by line by line. And I was like, oh my gosh, why is this taking so long? Because I really wanted to get the video out today before we did the live stream. And, you know, just to kind of have like a double upload day, you know, where I was like, oh, we're going to have a video. And then after the video, a couple of hours later, we'll do the live stream. And I was so excited. And then I started audio editing, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to take a bajillion fucking years. Hey, Ghost TV. I was like, this is gonna take me for fucking ever. And I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna get done. I'm not gonna get done in time. But yeah, so fun fact, you will be getting a video. Well, actually, you know what? I will wait and put the video out next week, because we're going to do a live stream. I'm going to read I'm going to read 4 stories to you. 4. Normally it's 3. I'm going to read 4 to you to make up for last week. But yeah, so I'll put it up next week. I was really happy with it. It's been a while since I've had to like clean up audio and do all the, you know, the post-production stuff. That stuff takes a lot of time. But it's going to be really good. I'm not going to tell you what the story is, but it's a long video. It's a 36-minute video. I'm not telling you. You're going to have to wait till next week. But I was editing audio. I was editing audio for the video that I'm going to put out, and I will tell you, I'm not going to tell you what the story is, but I will tell you that it is a sequel to a popular story that is already on the channel. So whenever you see the title go up, guys, if you feel like going back and re-listening to the first story, I will put a link in the description, and I will put a card in the video so you can go back and listen to the previous video before listening to the second part. So it'll be really good. I was really happy with the editing that I did. I was really happy with how everything flowed really well. I just have to put all the images in the video, and I have to put the images and video loops, and I have to add the background music. But other than that, everything else is pretty much done. Also, I'm gonna be trying out new intros for the videos. Oh, thanks, Hopeful Generation. Yeah, so I'm gonna be trying out new openings or openings to the or intros to the horror story narrations. One of the community members, V8, has sent me a few clips that I thought were really cool, and I want to try and cycle through those and see what everyone thinks. But since this is my first time back in a while, we will have the old intro on the video for next week, and then after that, every subsequent video after that will have a new intro. So I'm super excited to try new things and play around with new transitions and kind of tweak my way of doing audio. And who knows, you may or may not get a story written by yours truly for the channel again. I know a lot of people enjoyed the one story that I wrote for the channel called Back Against the Wall. So there have been some other stuff that I've dabbled and written in. I'm super excited to do that. The animation, the ones for the video, I usually do video loops. Yeah, so it's gonna be there's gonna be a lot of changes, but they're not gonna be drastic changes. They're all gonna be changes for the better. They're going to make the channel more fun, more interactive, and when we do gaming or when we're watching stuff together, I want to be able to have some kind of face for you guys to kind of look at, and for me to interact with you guys as well in the chat. So it's gonna be fun. I'm super stoked. I cannot wait. But yeah, there's just a lot going on, and I'm really excited. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get into it. I need to pull up some audio, but yeah, so basically, long story short, video coming next week. So excited. It's a sequel. I've been sitting on it for a while because the author of the original story, he specifically sent me the second part because he enjoyed my narration of the first part so much, and I've been meaning to do it forever, and I just recorded it forever ago, and life happened. But it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I'm super excited. It was really fun audio editing again, and just putting my whole heart into everything. And you guys know I'm really not about quantity as I am quality. So my goal is to put out at least one video a week and live stream with you guys every week. So as long as we maintain that, I can possibly go from there and improve and get better. But for now, we're just going to take it slow and just enjoy the time that we have together. So yeah, anyway, but we're going to get into the story reading here. I really like this song. Sorry about that, guys. I really like the chill hop and chill step playlist I always have for you guys whenever we're just sitting around just kind of chilling and talking. Anyway, yeah, so let me dig up what I'm going to be reading. Okay, so the first story we're going to read, yeah, so we have let me look at the times here. We have a 7-minute, a 21-minute, a 10-minute, and a 22-minute. So I will alternate between short, long, short, long. That should work out for everybody, right? Okay, cool. Let's see here. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It means a lot to me that you guys are like enjoying the streams every week. I wish I could stream every day, but unfortunately, because of work and I am unable to do that. But we'll figure it out. Yes, Corny, this is my face. I have been a 2D anime girl this whole time. I know. It's astonishing. I apologize. I meant to reveal it forever ago. My community, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh wait, did I hit the wrong emotion? There we go. Just kidding. I'm not actually crying. I know, right? But yes. Let's get started, okay? All right, awesome. I'm gonna switch gears here real quick. And all right, we're switching gears. And we're gonna turn the music down a little bit. And pause there. And all right, here we go. All right, the first story is called The Quiet Sky. I will provide a link in the chat. You can read along with me as I read aloud. It all started when we called out to the stars, into the darkness. We felt so small, tumbling through vast emptiness, while clinging to the skin of the world and without a single reason why. We were curious yet, but ultimately, I think we were just terribly frightened. And we were young. So very young. We were children, and like a lonely, lost child, we did the only thing we could think of to make it stop. We did what we thought we had to do to make the universe make sense. We called for help. For years, we scanned the sky for a sign. We sent signals to the stars and the darkness beyond. Are we alone? But the skies were quiet, always so quiet, leaving us to our own makings. But crying children never cease, and neither did we. We sent calls into every corner of space for decade after decade. We refused to believe no one was out there. They had to be. Yet for some unknown reason, they never answered us. Everyone remembers when that changed. They think it responded to the Arecibo message from 1974. The response to the Arecibo message was sent almost 3 months ago in 2 separate parts. The first part of the message was received at the Hat Creek Radio Observatory in California. The Allen telescope array picked up what sounded like static interference that continued on for over an hour. It consisted of unintelligible screeching and buzzing sounds that continued without pause for the whole hour. The meaning of this message was never discovered, if it had one. The only thing we knew was that the signal's origin came somewhere in the Hercules constellation near Messier 13. As soon as that signal stopped, the real message began. We made contact that day, and we were asked a question. Who is there? It came not through the radios, but as a voice inside all of our heads asked the question to all of us. I heard it. My wife heard it. The young heard it, and the old heard it. Even the deaf heard it. Everyone, everywhere, heard this voice whisper that question in their heads in every language on earth. I remember it almost too clearly. It asked in that unfamiliar yet indescribable voice that's always there in my mind. It was like one of my own thoughts had gone rogue and had decided to speak directly to me. The world seemed to stop as everyone listened for what came next. Where are you? The heavy question seemed to linger in our minds for hours afterwards, and then for days, and then for weeks. That day changed everything. There were the doubters from the very beginning, and the holy ones who claimed that God had spoken to all of us and that the time to repent was now. There were those who claimed they'd heard nothing, and those who claimed that the aliens had given them their own secret messages. And of course, there were those who truly believed that we had been contacted for the first time by an extraterrestrial race like us, one ready to communicate, ready to lead us out of the dark. We were wrong. We never made contact with alien life, at least nothing comprehensible or discernible to human understanding. The stars are vast, and in their vastness our voices had touched the ears of something truly incomprehensible, something hungry and malevolent. The voice. We realized our mistake when the ground started to groan. Beneath our feet everywhere, the ground seemed to moan. The muffled sound shook through the dust and dirt below us. No one knew what was causing it, at least not until the calls started coming in. The graveyards were screaming. All at once, the dead had started screaming. Every deceased man, woman, and child was turning in their graves. All the animals did so too. Every dog, every cat, everything that had ever walked this earth. The cries of ancient whales shook the seas, and the shrill screeching of birds echoed in the forests. The caskets shook, and the morgues howled. The voices stopped altogether, in an instant leaving the world in an amplified silence. In their absence, a new sound filled the air. The voice returned. I hear you. It came as a whisper from behind, an ominous yet oddly playful presence that felt so close but was truly still so far away. It let us breathe in the silence of a minute before it made us promise. It was a promise we all knew to be true. I am coming. The voice was gone, and the air was again filled with screams. This time, they were from the living. After the voice had gone, we were left to our own devices. Millions panicked, and rightfully so, as chaos took hold of the streets. Many would die in the violence and the gunfire of that night. They would be known as the raptured before long, and the rest of us were the condemned. We could only wait. The screaming dead was only the first of the side effects that we felt as the voice approached. The closer it got, the more we felt it. The first night after the screaming, we noticed the stars bleed for the first time. A section of the western sky had turned black, blacker than the night. It was only truly visible because of the ring of stars around it. The light from those stars had turned red, and they seemed to bleed across the sky like food coloring dropped into water. Their light swirled and flowed all around the edge of some unseen mass. I knew then that I was staring into the face of the voice. Our scientists claimed that nothing was there and that their radar and scans always came up empty. Their telescopes could see nothing but darkness in that section of space. However, the proof was right in front of us as every night that ring of darkness got wider and more stars bled in the sky. We watched it come. As each night passed, the black spot would widen and more stars would distort and bleed around it. During the day, a new hell would greet us. The side effects worsened. The day always brought something new. I'm sure most of what happened will go untold and unknown. The animals started disappearing, all of them. No tracks, traces, or bodies were left behind. Pets would run away, some violently so. They all retreated, never to be seen again. The forests were left abandoned, the oceans empty. The air was left silent. The world left simply empty and lonely. They left like water receding from the shore just before the tsunami breaks. One day, about 2 weeks ago, scientists tried to talk to the voice again. They hoped perhaps to reason with it. They told it about what was happening on our world and asked it questions. The scientists begged. It didn't speak. When asked what the voice sent a response. The next night the skies lit up with streaks of fire. It was a light for hours, blazoned with orange and red. We didn't realize the effects until the next day when the televisions turned to static and the telephones refused to work. We had sat watching as all the satellites were knocked out of the heavens. After that, reports became rumors and rumblings. Sanity, a thing of the past. The air chilled and weighed us down. The voice was nearly here, and everyone felt it. It rained for a week after the satellites fell. The rain was salty and mired with an unknown filth that turned the grass black. Maybe the satellites tracked something back in with them when they hit the sky. No one knew for sure. All we know is that it fell from the clouds black as charcoal that blotted out the sun like liquid ash. Darkness fell upon us for days. When the clouds went away, the skies were empty. There were no clouds, yet the sky hung low and gray. If the sun was anywhere in the sky, it never made itself known. Even it had abandoned us. Each day grew slowly darker and darker until night and day became almost the same. Some people would claim later that they'd seen things in the dark. Creatures with gangly limbs and crooked faces lurking in the corner of their vision. They were tall, white creatures that looked molten or rotten through their transparent skin. Appearances would last for just a second or two before vanishing without a trace. Some believed this was the first step in the aliens' invasion, but the rest of us didn't know what to think. We just knew that it was nothing that simple or benign. They must have been hallucinations, just more madness to endure, but ultimately, as harmless as anything else, as harmless as the screams of the dead, the missing animals, and the dying sky. Appearances slowly increased in duration and number. I think everyone saw them once at the least, but I don't think a single person would ever guess what they were truly here for. They never touched nor spoke to anyone, and they certainly never harmed anyone. Most who got good looks at them described them as mournful or sorrowful looking. Some even claimed the creatures watched over them at night, and others even claimed that it seemed as if the creatures were sorry for them. One claimed to have even seen one prostrate upon the ground, hands clasped above its head. He said it was praying for us. Prayer was no help. The churches and places of worship that had divided us for so long failed to bring hope to any in the end. The voice let them pray and beg for a while, but just days ago the voice ended it all. No one questioned how, for at this point nothing that happened surprised anyone anymore. But on the final day, all books of worship burned. Every last Bible, every Quran, everything. People rushed to their centers of faith, but found no solace. The churches and temples had suffered the same fates, if not worse. The people were left abandoned by their greatest hopes. There were rumors of churches all over the world, with walls formed from the bodies of those who sought refuge. They were merged to the walls, stuck to them like flies in a trap. They died, still pleading for hope, but they were beyond God's help. The rest of us had learned to stop begging. We waited. The final message came. From beyond the sky it fell upon us. The voice echoed, and it spoke the simple truth. I am here. There is a darkness beyond the horizon, the likes of which I doubt has ever been seen. It brings with it the screams of countless souls, and it moves fast. The stars are dying now, and I know they'll never be seen again. The light is dying so fast. I leave this not as a warning. No, it's far too late for that. Instead, consider this the last realization, the last humanity will ever know. For we used to wonder whether or not we were alone and lost, but never whether or not we were safe and hidden. The universe is infinite, and our understanding was significantly more finite. We should never have beckoned to the darkness. Instead, we should have clung to the light and closed our eyes every time we returned to the void. As the final minutes approach, I hold one final truth to be certain. I now know why the skies were always so quiet. Ooh, that kind of hurt my heart a little bit. I was sad. Ugh, 1 second, guys. I had to drink some water. Okay. Welcome, Toa. Welcome. Good to see you. Yeah, I need a moment here. I had to drink some water. I didn't realize I was going to be putting my soft, somber voice on there. I think I'm good. Let's see. Okay. Did I spill something on me? No. Okay. Next up is the Infinity game. Oh my god. Oh my god, I hate Alexa so much. Hang on, guys. My Alexa has lost her mind. Okay. Yeah, so the next one we will be reading is the Infinity game. I will provide the link, and you guys can read with me as I read aloud. There's the link. Okay, here we go. Has anyone ever played the Infinity game? The one with the mirrors? Most people don't know it's a game. They just think it's a cool visual effect. Maybe it's different for me, being raised by witches. Not Halloween witches, but the ones who practice Wicca. You can Google it if you really want to learn about them, but I'm here to talk about the game. Most people don't understand what it's capable of. They have no idea they're standing at a locked door or what's on the other side. It's almost like Wizard of Oz. If you can find your way to the Mirror Master, you'll be rewarded with a wish, but getting there is not an easy journey, and you want to choose your words carefully. To play, you need at least one other person, 2 standing mirrors, 5 black candles, a stick of chalk, warm clothing, and a red armband. The red band is the most important thing to remember. It's not required to get in, but you shouldn't leave without it. While in the mirror world, you must be wary of your reflection. Its only goal is to take your place in the real world, meaning you will be trapped forever. It cannot kill you. Instead, it will attempt to trick you. Never ever speak to it. It will be dressed like you, except its armband will be on the left. Whoever you have waiting in the real world will be responsible for ensuring it doesn't get out. Choose someone you trust. Only your reflection can take your place, but everything else you meet will try to kill you from sheer spite. If you die in there, your soul will be trapped and the mirror through which you entered will shatter. Make sure your friend is aware, and a shattered mirror indicates they should immediately destroy the other one as well. Though unlikely, there are a few entities powerful enough to use this situation to their advantage. To be safe, make sure the friend isn't easily manipulated. Now that you have all the supplies, draw a pentagram on the floor with space for the mirrors in the center. Then put the lit candles on each point of the star. When everything is in place, the reflection will appear as a never-ending hallway. Stand between the mirrors and focus only on the infinite corridor. Soon, you will notice a shadow far behind your reflection. Focus on that, letting the world around you fade. Do not look away or blink. Slowly begin to inch forward, but do not be afraid of bumping into the glass. Think of it as platform 9 3/4. You must know it's going to work. When you feel a drastic temperature drop, you can look at your surroundings. You are officially inside the mirror world's lobby. Though, I suppose it's more like a bridge. It's what connects the two places, but my family calls it the lobby. There is where you must proceed with extreme caution. The mirror world is a backwards replica of ours. Not only does that mean left is right, it also means beautiful, thriving cities are dead and crumbling. If you are unable to enter, do not leave the game unattended. Remove the mirrors immediately. The things that live there can't be described as alive, but they are desperate. My mother was supposedly the only person to successfully return after seeing the Mirror Master. Growing up, I was told no one has ever met him, but when Mom, Ellen, died 2 months ago, I found her diary. My amazement grew with each passage as she described her own experience with the Infinity Game. Her first entry is from 6 months after having her firstborn, John. He was sickly and doctors said he wouldn't live to see his first birthday. She was aware of the game's dangers, but she didn't care, not if it would save her son. I will mention the relevant entry here. Let it serve as warning to any who wish to play. Even the winners lose. From the Diary of Ellen Pierce. I hope to never open this diary again. I purchased a new book for the start of our new lives, but instead of writing on crisp, clean pages, I continue here. The tear-stained memorial to the darkest 6 months of my life was to be buried under decades of beautiful memories. Yet, here I am. I won this stupid game. We should be far away from this place beginning anew, not here. There is only hate and pain left in my heart. Everyone told me not to go, but I didn't have a choice. Each time someone said, "You can always have more children," my heart ached with fury. I was prepared to risk my own life, but not for this. Not to feel the joy of knowing my son would survive only to have it ripped away again. I thought I would be different, but now I write this only to warn others. I hope that vile creature never wins another soul. I entered easily, feeling the temperature drop as if exiting a heated room and into the Arctic tundra. I always imagined a chill in the air, but this was cold enough to see my breath. Behind me was a mirror, and in it I saw Thomas. He appeared to be in shock, his mouth hung open as he waved. It would have been funny under different circumstances. I think the strange hallway is an in-between place. Both sides are lined with identical white doors, and I didn't know which to choose. I couldn't see the end of the hall, it still appeared infinite. I tried the closet doors, but they were locked. There were no keyholes, just solid knobs. I walked down the corridor, feeling more nervous each time I looked back to see Thomas farther away. There was no way to track the passage of time. Electronics won't work there. I don't know how long I walked before I heard the soft click of a door opening, but I no longer saw home when I turned around. Instead, I saw my reflection. She was wearing her armband on the left, just as the legend said. I know I should have been afraid, but I found it comforting. It meant that the stories were true, that John had a real chance of surviving. I would have gladly traded my own life for his, but that's not how the game works. My reflection called to me. "Are you lost? You need to go this way." She indicated the door where she emerged from. I knew not to respond. I remained silent as she tried again. "Hello? What's wrong? Are you deaf or just rude?" "Fine. I don't care if you want to spend eternity trying to open locked doors." She shrugged and began walking in Thomas's direction. I couldn't follow. I had to trust my husband to tell the difference. She would return when she failed to deceive him. I couldn't go the way she recommended, but wanted to look inside. I walked back to the open door, keeping a healthy distance. Standing in the center of the hall, I tried to peer inside, but it was too dark to see anything. I wasn't even outside yet, and I was already cracking under the pressure. Were the other doors all really locked? How long before something worse found me? It was then I realized, why do they call this a game? Game implies there's a way to move forward, clues to follow. That's when I understood how literal the stories were. If everything is backwards, shouldn't I go to the door opposite the one indicated by my reflection? I reached for the other doorknob, holding my breath as I felt it turn beneath my hand. It opened effortlessly, though I know it was locked before. It opened to reveal our kitchen, where Thomas and I chose to set the mirrors. The light was dim, everything was reversed, but it was also filthy. Worse, instead of finding my husband, I found a horrifying, twisted old man. His back was hunched, his teeth and nails were yellow, and his red face contorted in hatred. I was frozen with fear as his icy gaze bore into my soul. "What the hell do you think you're doing here?" he screamed, spit flying from his mouth. In my terror, I couldn't remember if it was against the rules to talk to anyone beside your reflection, but I didn't want to risk it. I took a few steps to my left, hoping to get the door before he could block my exit. "Don't you dare ignore me, tramp!" the old man croaked in a raspy, hoarse voice. He reached under the table, retrieving a long metal cane. Thankfully, he was slow as he looked. I ran around through the swinging door to the den. He was still cursing me as I continued out the front door. At the end of the driveway, I noticed my surroundings. The neighborhood was in ruins. The yards were dead, and the houses were all abandoned. It was my neighborhood, but it looked like a ghost town. None of the cars worked. Each one had busted windows, popped hoods, or slashed tires. It was midnight back home. It should have been noon there, but it looked like dusk. I understand why our reflections are so desperate to trade places. For some reason, I felt confident the old man wouldn't follow me outside. Something gave me the idea his part of the game was to guard that kitchen door for when I needed to get home. I didn't stay to test the theory, but now I'm pretty sure I was correct. I was never told where to go once I made it this far. The stories were all vague in that regard. The only thing I knew for certain was that it would get worse before it was over. That's when I realized how desperately I needed a working vehicle for speed and protection. I resigned myself to look for a bicycle when I remembered the mechanic who lives 3 houses down. Every weekend his garage doors open and he could be seen working on an old car. It was hardly more than a body and wheels last time I saw it. If everything is opposite, wouldn't that car be in working condition here? Yes, it was. The damn thing made me truly believe I could do it. Hope is dangerous. If something is too good to be true, it probably is. I was so excited by the sight of the pristine red car, I forgot to be wary of danger. A strange creature I almost mistook for a dog stood between me and victory. It was of similar size and color to a German Shepherd, but its mouth opened sideways to reveal extra rows of teeth. I don't know if its eyes were located elsewhere or it just didn't have any, but the ears looked hard, almost like rounded horns. I couldn't discern a nose either, but I'm sure it had one. I could hear it sniffing my scent. It gave me a headache to look too closely, like my brain was rejecting the very sight of it. My eyes frantically searched for anything to use as a weapon, but there was nothing nearby. My heart sank as I realized it would come down to a race. I held no chance of winning. Stealing a quick glance at my surroundings, I saw the only chance was to run for the door and hope it was unlocked. Otherwise, I would be eaten by a dog monster. I tried to mentally prepare myself when a long, high-pitched whistle turned the creature's growls to whimpers. It wasn't pleasant to my ears either, but I enjoyed seeing its effect. The noise continued until the dog ran out of sight. I didn't see the source of the sound at first, but I didn't have to wait long. My reflection walked into view, smiling proudly. She stopped several feet away but remained silent. I was confused until I almost asked why. My mouth opened wide, froze, then slowly closed. She hoped I would talk without thinking. Plus, if I die this quick, she can't escape. In her own way, she's more terrifying than the monsters. Uh-oh, almost had you that time. You might want to find yourself a weapon before you run into anything else. Hey, do you even know which way to go? She spoke like we were best friends. I was too afraid to shake my head or shrug. It seemed like the kind of place that thrived on loopholes. Instead, I stared at her feet, willing her to say a direction so I could go the opposite way. You look lost. Do you need a map? I could draw one for you. Come on, just nod or something. I'm trying to help. She stomped her foot in frustration. To me, that was confirmation about the loopholes. Or maybe she could read my mind. Either way, I wasn't trying it. Be that way. I don't care if you want to live or not, but it's a shame the kid has to die just because you won't ask for help. She shrugged and began walking away. Those words hit me like a freight train at the time. But now that the words carry the added weight of truth, I feel as if they still will crush me. Controlling my temper as she left was one of the most difficult parts of that nightmare. So many times I wondered if punching her counted as communication, but John's life was not worth the risk. That is when I vowed to break every mirror I saw for the rest of my life. A vow I have thus far made good on. When she was well out of sight, I discovered my next obstacle would be to find keys. The car was locked, but the house was not. Knowing something would be inside, I took a large crowbar from the garage. I crept in the back door, staying low. I was in an empty kitchen, hoping for a nice key hook by the door, but couldn't be so fortunate. The room smelled of the rotten food on every counter, and flies were swarming something that looked like raw meat. I choked down the vomit threatening to erupt and focused on John. This experience was nothing compared to the idea of losing him. I made my way into a den with a broken TV and rough-looking leather furniture. From where I stood, a recliner was directly in front of me, with a couch on either side, all angled towards the television in the center. Small, dirty tables sat on each end of the couches, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw car keys atop one by the recliner. Forgetting my fear, I reached down quickly, only to scream myself hoarse when a cold, skeletal hand shot out from the chair, grasping my wrist. It had a grip of steel. For a moment, I thought it would break my arm. I lashed out desperately with the crowbar, making contact with whatever was on the other side of that recliner. The instant its grip released, my hand closed around the keys, and I ran for the car. It was pure luck the dog monster hadn't returned, because I didn't stop to check before flying outside. As soon as the car door closed, I hit the lock button 3 times and performed a thorough inspection of the back seat. Satisfied there were no unexpected passengers, I was ready to go. There was a horrific moment of fear. The car still wouldn't start as I inserted the key, but it roared to life like it was brand new. Hell, it probably was. It really is just like the King's Quest. Find a clue, find an item, solve a puzzle, escape danger, advance, repeat to the boss fight. Careful, Elle, your nerd is showing. Look at me, I made a joke. Never thought that would happen again. I went to the end of the driveway and hit the brakes, realizing I didn't know which way to go. In a game, when there's multiple paths, they usually all come out to the same place. Or one is a deadly trap with no escape. Of course, you usually know your destination. That's when it hit me. If I'm playing a game where the goal is to cure a sick boy, where would the boss fight take place? A hospital. You would want the best doctor with the best equipment. I turned left towards the best hospital in the state. When John was born, we moved 3 hours away from our hometown to be near it. 15 minutes away was the closest residence we could find, and it seemed good enough at the time, but now it felt like hours. I didn't know what the roads would be like, but I knew it wouldn't be good. I could have never imagined the level of destruction as I saw that day. Our normally smooth, paved streets were filled with large potholes, some big enough to get stuck in if I wasn't careful. The buildings were in various stages of demolition. None looked to be inhabited, but I'm sure they were. The beautiful plants and trees that once lined the medians were brown and dead. I kept careful watch on my surroundings, worried something would come charging from a dark alley as I slowly steered around potholes. Luckily, it only happened once, close to the halfway point. I was preparing for another tight squeeze when I heard a scraping sound from behind. In the rearview mirror, I saw another deformed-looking man. This one was younger, with long, greasy hair and burned skin. The sound was from the steel bat he was dragging, and one of those weird dog monsters tagged along like his pet. If the roads were decent, I could outrun them easily, but I knew they would catch me if I drove into the middle of that bad patch. I slowed down even more, letting them get a little closer to the decent section of the road. I don't think they are capable of intelligent thought. They did not hesitate when I began reversing, nor did they make any attempt to move when I ran them down. I aimed for the man, considering him the main threat, but the beast was only stunned. There was a moment I thought it was over when the car stalled on top of the corpse, but the wheels found traction when the beast collided with the rear end. Not sure how he avoided going under the wheels as I flew backwards, but it wasn't touched. I shifted into drive and punched the gas, trying once more for the dog monster, but still missing. Going fast as I dared, I ran over the man once more, just to be sure, before coming to a cautious stop. I hated not knowing what the dog thing was doing, but felt fairly certain it ran away to lick its wounded pride. I didn't doubt I would see it again, but that was a problem for later. I made it to the hospital without further attacks, parking in front of the main entrance. The sight of it did not inspire confidence. It was in worse condition than anything I'd seen yet. That's when I realized I made a terrible mistake. Everything is opposite. The best hospital would be the worst. I needed our world's worst hospital. I jumped back into the car and made my way to the free clinic on 3rd. If my theory was right, it would probably hold the cure for cancer. A flock of zombie birds attacked the car at one point, but they didn't cause much damage. I knew I'd made the right decision the moment I entered the bad side of town. Well, our world's bad side. In this world, it was full of lavish manners, the clinic was immaculate and double its normal size. I parked on the curb and ran for the entrance. It was starting to get darker, but I didn't understand how. There should have been hours of daylight left. Then, once again, as if reading my mind, the bitch was back. Gosh, are you just now getting here? You better hurry, time is running out fast, she teased. I had never heard of a time limit. I ached to taunt her with the obvious failures to deceive Thomas. If she was still there, it meant she couldn't fool him. The thought filled me with strength. I turned my back on her and walked inside, but she followed. You know that, right? That when it gets dark, the hourglass stands empty? Well, not literally, but I like the expression. Anyway, I just wanted to check because it seems like most people from your world are ignorant to that detail, she said nonchalantly. The more I considered it, the more it made sense. Most games do have time limits, and being in this place after dark does have a sort of game over vibe. Unfortunately, I couldn't ask questions and I had to keep moving. I thought she would leave again, but she continued to follow at a careful distance. Don't mind me. I just want to see the big climax. Your sweetie was too smart. There's no point chatting with him anymore. I didn't give her the satisfaction of looking back. Seeing a map of the hospital, I stopped to study the layout. Of course, I needed to get to the top floor. It couldn't be right here on the ground floor. No, heaven forbid. I walked to the elevator, but noticed my reflection was gone. The doors chimed and slid open. Put one foot inside, but pulled it out quickly. Did I really want to walk into a metal box in a bizarro world where there's no one to help if I get trapped inside? I looked around and saw a nice open stairway. The empty elevator closed behind me as I made my way to the stairs. I held onto the rail all the way up, losing because of a fall so late in the game would be too insulting to live with. I'm glad I did too, because my reflection jumped out screaming boo the moment I reached the top. I wonder if anyone has tried to murder their reflection. I'll have to look into that one day. I held my crowbar at the ready as I passed her. It felt glued to my hand after so much time. My reflection was tailing me a little closer, getting desperate, I'm sure. When I reached the reception desk for the children's ward, she took a seat in the waiting area. She grinned when she saw me waiting, watching, giving me 2 thumbs up and a wink. You go, girl, I'm rooting for you. More confused than ever, I went through the double doors in search of the doctor, or mirror master, I guess. Terrible name. They had no imagination back in the day. I would have named him the Greedy Gremlin. Okay, maybe that's not much better, but it is better. He wasn't hard to find. I stood in a dark hallway and bright light shone under the swinging doors ahead. I'd come too far to stop them. I could feel my heart thumping in my ears with every step. When I walked into the light, it was so bright I had to shield my eyes. Then, with the snap of someone's fingers, they faded to normal indoor lighting. The only person in the room was the doctor I see on TV, the one on that ridiculous commercial with that annoyingly catchy tune. I can't remember his name. You know, the really fat, bald guy with glasses. It's not important. It wasn't how it looked anyway. It threw me off, though, and the surprise must have shown on my face. Not what you were expecting. Me either. Who is this anyway? The doctor asked, examining his own appearance. You don't know who you are? I stammered. Ugh, of course I know who I am, girl. I appear however one's mind is comfortable seeing me, but it's usually not this. He cringed. What? Wait, how could... I tried to ask. No, you aren't here for magic lessons, and I don't give them anyway. You came here because you want something desperately enough to risk your life for it. I find that utterly delicious, so tell me, what do you want? You mean I just tell you and you do it? I don't have to, I don't know, solve a riddle or kill a monster? I couldn't believe it would be so simple. Oh, I'm sorry. Was finding me too easy for you? Were my pets not vicious enough, my dear? Well, worry not, for next is the best part yet. The longer you're here, the darker it gets. The darker it becomes, the more of my pets you're likely to see. Most of them are nocturnal, but they'll be awake and ready for breakfast any moment now. He was a lively talker. His voice was booming with pride, and his hand gestures were all over the place. I could only stand there, horrified and speechless. Come now. What's your wish? Weren't you listening? You should probably pick up the pace. He grinned, and his teeth were no longer the normal teeth of the TV doctor, but sharp brown fangs. My son is dying. I want you to cure him. I tried to keep my voice steady. That's a tricky one. Money, love, fame, those things are easy. Murder is the easiest, but life? Ugh, that is very tricky indeed. It disrupts the natural order. He was enjoying himself. Please, I'll do anything, I begged. Well, there is this one way it could work, if you're sure. There is no turning back. He paused, stretching the suspense until I vigorously shook my head in agreement. Very good, then. With a snap of his fingers, a scroll appeared in one hand and a pen in the other. It was the kind of pen you dipped into ink, but I never saw one before that moment. Sign here, please. One flick of the wrist and the long scroll opened, falling to the floor between us. I picked up the bottom end, eyes scrolling over the millions of tiny printed words jammed together on the paper. At the very end was a sign here line. If I sign this, it'll cure my baby. He will be in and stay in perfect health. I could not see my son cured of one sickness only to fall ill the following week. Absolutely. In fact, with this contract, your boy will be immune to all disease, he assured. My heart sang at the words, and if the cost of saving John happened to be my own life, as I suspected, it was a price I'd happily pay. I reached for the pen, and with a stab too fast for my eyes to see, the doctor pricked my finger. A large drop of blood fell into the paper, and with another snap, the contract vanished. It's been a pleasure doing business. By the way, to cure your son, I had to borrow half his father's remaining lifespan. Toodles. The doctor disappeared with a final wink. I hope I never see his wretched face again. His words made my blood run cold, but I couldn't stop to do the math right then. Terrified of what would be chasing me, I ran back to the waiting room area. My reflection was waiting for me at the doors to the waiting room, smiling. I shoved on the doors with all my strength, but she had me locked in. I used my adrenaline to smash the glass door to the reception counter with my crowbar. My arms and legs were cut getting through, but I didn't have time to worry about blood loss. I flew over the counter, ignoring the shocked look of my reflection. As I made my way down the stairs, I saw several more zombie-looking people coming out of various rooms. I almost didn't make it back to the ground floor when a kid with no legs managed to grab my ankle. The only thing that saved me was the crowbar catching the rail. I tumbled. When I finally made it to the entrance, I saw the car was turned onto its side, and several more zombies and dog things were waiting close by. Remembering the hospital map, I decided to take a chance on the ambulance bay. I was betting they would have owned at least one junked out ambulance that would run in this world. If they didn't, I would likely have died there. Not even someone with machine guns could survive on the streets now. I cried when I saw it. There was one ambulance that appeared in working condition, and I was lucky enough for the keys to be inside. I still checked in the back to make sure it was empty, but that almost got me killed too. I slammed the back doors just in time to avoid one of the dogs jumping in. The ambulance rocked to side from the things trying to get in as I strapped myself into the driver's seat. It was my first time driving anything bigger than a car. I think it would have been a bumpy ride under normal circumstances. There were several times I thought the ambulance would tip over. The worst was close to the end. I was almost back in my neighborhood when I heard the roar of another engine right before it crashed into my bumper. I went off the road, missing a huge crater by inches before regaining control. The truck driven by my reflection reversed to follow. I did something desperate. I waited for her to get right behind me, almost touching, and accelerated. As I hoped, she too sped up, trying to position herself to force me into a fishtail. At the last possible second, I closed my eyes and swerved away, once again becoming dangerously close to flipping over. Behind me, the bitch couldn't react in time. The truck she found was pointed nose down in a deep crater, its back end hanging out at a steep angle. My house was surrounded by hideous creatures. Most didn't appear human or animal. I couldn't tell what the warped things were supposed to be. Some of them had several limbs or appendages, some had none. One looked like a huge floating eyeball, and another looked like a snake with two heads. I didn't see a way inside. I couldn't believe I came all this way just to lose here. At the very least, I wanted to kill as many as possible before I died. That's when a plan occurred to me. I reversed to position myself for a straight shot through our den. The house was now termite infested anyway. Even if we didn't have the huge windows, I'm sure the walls would have been weak enough to drive through. I felt like I was operating a tank as two of the creatures fell beneath the wheels. It was a strange sight as the walls crumbled around me, and the sound was terrible, but I didn't stop to enjoy the view. When the ambulance couldn't go any further, I climbed out the passenger window and dove through the kitchen door without looking to see what followed. The moment I saw the kitchen, my eyes searched for the old man, but he saw me first. Pain blossomed behind my eyes as something struck me over the head. I fell to the ground, dazed, but managed to keep a grip on the crowbar. I feigned unconsciousness until the old man grabbed one of my ankles. I sat up, swinging wildly, and enjoyed the wet smack of contact. His black blood sprayed, and I wasted no time getting to my feet. As I made it to the exit, more creatures burst into the room. I rushed to the door, hoping it locked behind me. I held my breath as the door shook furiously, but nothing was able to follow. I breathed a sigh of relief and began feeling my injuries in earnest. I had several deep gashes on my arms and legs, my head was bleeding badly, and my wrist was swelling. Grateful to still have that armband, I began making my way to the mirror entrance. I only made it a few steps when I heard the soft click of another door behind me. I hope you didn't expect to be rid of me that easily. Her voice no longer sounded like mine. It was deeper, distorted. I turned to see she had the same ghoulish zombie appearance as those other things. Did she always look that way? Did I only see me because that's what I expected, like the doctor? I hope someone solves the mysteries of that place one day. There are still so many unanswered questions. I ran for my life, focused on Thomas and John. I heard her footsteps gaining as she screamed at me, "Have you figured it out yet? Wait up, I'll explain it to you. If you divide the lifespan in half, it means they have the same amount of time to live. Do you get it? Wait up!" She cackled an evil, dark laugh. It sounded unnatural in her garbled voice. Humans should not be able to make the sounds her laughter made. I was so focused on the light at the end of the corridor, I didn't understand what she was telling me. I heard her footsteps closer with every step, but couldn't look back. Her howling laughter followed me all the way home. When Thomas saw me, his eyes lit up with relief, then fear and anger as he saw my appearance and that of the thing chasing me. I saw him step away from the mirror, allowing me to exit. I went through the mirror like an Olympian diver. The second I was out, I turned to see Monster Me collide into the glass, bouncing off like rubber. Now that I was back, the doorway was closed for her. Before she could rise, Thomas shattered the glass. He shattered the second one just to be safe, but for the record, could have simply blown out the candles and erased the pentagram. It wasn't until several hours later, after I explained everything to my husband, that we understood what she was trying to tell us. If they had the same amount of time to live, they would die at the same time. I was devastated. I knew I wouldn't be able to handle losing both at once. We were so young. I thought we could still have many years. I never dreamed. I couldn't believe. Thomas and John passed away 2 weeks later. John was crying in the night. Thomas felt badly for my lack of sleep, so he took the baby for a drive. It calmed John, and it was only a few times around the block, but this time a drunk driver ran a stop sign. See? It was all for nothing. My mother met my father 4 years later. It took a while for her to have a normal life again, but I always felt like we were a happy family. She was a terrific mom. I had no idea such terrible things were in her past. Dad didn't know the full story either, only that she had a husband and a baby killed in a wreck before he met her. I can't blame her for not wanting to tell me. She knows how much I love a challenge. While no, I don't think I'll ever visit the mirror world anytime soon, it would be nice to learn more about it. Like she says, there's still so much we don't know, and personally, I have a long list of questions. Besides, it sounds fine if you don't make a wish, right? I'll just leave this here for now, in case anyone else knows anything. Whew. Okay, we made it. We made it. Oh. That was wild. The mirror world. There's so many different stories regarding the mirror world. It's hard to keep up with them all, honestly. Whew. That was super interesting in my opinion. Like, there's always different variations in the mirror world and the different stories behind it. I like to think that the one that I told in Higanbana is the more accurate version. But apparently they're not only just one mirror worlds, there are many mirror worlds, and that mirror world happened to be the one that reflected and changed people's personalities. So yes. Super interesting. Super confusing. Although, I think it's really cool that they did make a note to be like, the armband will be on the right, so if it's my reflection, the armband will be on the left. That's how you'll be able to know that it's not me. But yeah, I think that's really interesting how they do it that way. Oh man. Okay. So, real quick. Let's see here. So, really quickly, I will be right back. We're going to take a small break. I need to get more water. Actually, let me make Starting a new scene. Stream. Okay, and yep. So I will be right back. I'm gonna go get some water and we will continue. Alright guys, I'm back. Sorry to keep you all waiting. And let's see. Oh. There we go. My stuff freaked out for a second. My bad. Alright. Let's see. Thank you. Alright. 2 down, 2 more to go. Time to switch gears. Uh-oh. Hang on. My stuff's breaking. There we go. Let's try this again. Let's try this. Is it gonna work? Are you gonna work? You gonna do it? No, you're not gonna do it? Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Get on my freaking nerves. Alright. We are back. And let's see. No, it was just my external drive that it was hooked up to. It was acting up. But easily rectified. Okay. All right. Next story is a short one. Shorter. It's called Every Year on My Birthday, I Have to Die by Richard Saxon. I just realized I haven't been reading the names of these people. But anyway, here's the link to the story. You can read with me as I read aloud. Here we go. I died for the first time on the 18th of August 2006. It wasn't a particularly pleasant death, nor was it one that I actually expected. It was simply the random act of violence that destroyed my life, and it came out of nowhere. We were just relaxing at the pub, enjoying a few drinks after a busy day at work. It was my turn to buy a round of drinks, so I was trying to get the attention of the bartender. I felt someone punch me in the side. At first, I thought someone had just hit me, but then I felt the warmth and the rapid stream of blood pouring down my shirt. I realized then and there that I'd actually gotten stabbed. As far as I can remember, it wasn't even that painful. Still, my legs gave out under me and I collapsed to the floor. Even then, I worried more about ruining my expensive suit, ignoring the fact that I might be dying. Oncoming death is funny like that. Everyone thinks they're the exception, that they'll get out of from whatever horrible situation the universe has thrust upon them. At least that's what I thought, as the life drained from my body. The world around me just faded to black, and before I knew it, I had just died. Then there was the void. At first, it was little more than darkness, only broken by weird shapes and colors in the distance. As I regained a sense of my surroundings, I was dragged towards a new world, one without pain, suffering, or death. All there was were people on a journey to different destinations. Whether they had all died like myself, or if they weren't born yet, I didn't know. All I knew was that I wasn't afraid anymore. The worries, the anxiety, all my fears had been left behind. A light appeared in the distance, endlessly far away. I knew that would be my final destination, my final purpose in the brief life I'd led. Unfortunately, I never managed to get that far. I was jolted awake in my own bed, soaking wet from sweat and shaking like a maniac. My hand reflectively clutched my side to cover up the wound I'd sustained, but it wasn't there anymore. In fact, I didn't have a single scratch on me. Had it all been a dream? My phone lit up on the bedside table. I picked it up to find dozens of text messages and missed calls. "Hey man, we're at the pub. You coming or what?" the first message read, sent at 9:43 p.m. "Hey Rick, where the hell are you?" the second message read, sent at 10:23 p.m. Then there were a couple of phone calls and another message. "I guess you fell asleep, or maybe you're getting lucky. Whatever, I'll drink another shot in your honor. Happy birthday, Rick." Then I had over 20 phone calls and a singular message that sent shivers down my spine. "For fuck's sake, pick up the damn phone. Something happened to Danny." I immediately called back. My fingers were trembling both from my anticipation and from the memory of what had happened only a night ago. Even if my death had been little more than a nightmare, I knew for sure that I met up with my friends at the pub. The phone rang 3 times, then Jake picked up. "Rick, is that you? Where the hell are you?" Jake asked with a panicked, tired voice. I don't know what happened. I guess I fell asleep," I half-asked, half-stated. "Danny got stabbed last night," Jake said without listening to my explanation. "Stabbed? How?" "I don't know. Some nut job just walked up to him and stabbed him in the side." I almost dropped my phone in shock. Danny had been attacked just like myself, in exactly the same place. 1,000 thoughts rushed through my mind, but worry quickly became my main concern. Is he alright? He's still in surgery. They're only letting his wife know about... Wait, here she comes. Jake put his phone down, but I could still hear the muffled sound of their discussion. Danny's wife seemed upset, but I couldn't make out the words. Jake? I asked. He's dead. Danny's dead. The next few moments turned into a blurry haze of information. We'd all known Danny since we were kids, and now he was just gone. The murderer never even made it out from the pub. Apparently he got shot by one of the patrons as he tried to attack another guest. Still, I just couldn't shake the feeling that I was supposed to die that night. Regardless of what happened, time marched on without answers. Some of our coworkers quit after Danny's death, trying to hopelessly move on. I didn't blame them. I also needed some distance. I never even told them what I experienced that night. It wouldn't have helped them anyway. A year passed, and I hardly spoke to any of my friends. I started to get some semblance of normalcy in the wake of Danny's death, but that would all come to an end on the 18th of August, 2007. My birthday had arrived yet again, and I had absolutely no intention of celebrating it. Instead, I called in sick to work, bought a bottle of whiskey, and spent the day playing video games. By the time the day had given way to night, I'd almost finished the bottle. Even as a rather large guy, the alcohol had hit me hard. At around 9 o'clock, I just passed out in bed, waiting a horrible hangover in the morning. I only awoke around midnight when I heard the front door forcefully break open, followed by footsteps and whispers. I tried to get up, still drowsy from the alcohol. As I took one step out from my bed, I slipped and came tumbling down onto the floor. It produced a massive crash, loud enough to alert whichever intruders had broken in. I thought you said no one would be home, a man stated angrily. Don't worry about it, I'll go deal with them. The footsteps moved quickly in my direction. I tried to lock the door, but they were too fast, kicking it open and knocking me back to the ground. A masked man entered my room holding onto a gun. He spoke a single sentence to me before pointing the weapon at me and pulling the trigger. You should have stayed quiet. Unfortunately, the man was a horrible shot. He'd aimed at my head, but it hit me in my throat instead. There I lay, drowning in my own blood as I desperately gasped for air. I couldn't crawl away, and I couldn't call for help. I died on my bedroom floor on my own birthday, just as I had a year earlier. Once the life finally drained from my body and the god-awful pain ceased, I was back in the world beyond. I walked through the same colorful dimension that lay just on the edge of life. I admired the shapes and colors as they passed. In the distance, I saw a tree with branches stretching endlessly far from its trunk. From each branch dangled a person, real but not existing in our world. I wanted to visit them, but that wasn't my destination, because just like before, I would awake in my own bed, unharmed by the events from the previous night. My phone buzzed and I was filled with unfathomable dread. I still couldn't quite believe it, but I started to understand that someone would take my place in death. Hello? Rick, it's Dad. Your mother, she's passed away last night. A lump formed in my throat. I knew what was coming next, but I had to ask. What happened? The police say it was a burglary gone wrong. I don't know, I was working late. I should have been there. The discussion trailed off from there. My dad was distraught and could barely form coherent sentences. He blamed himself for not being there, but I knew the truth. It was my fault. During the next 2 months, he fell into deep depression. I couldn't blame him. He just lost the love of his life. I moved in with him just to help him pick up the pieces. He put on a strong face, trying his best to keep the shit afloat, but I could tell how close he was to just breaking down. If only I'd been there. It wasn't your fault, Dad. Have you been there? Had you been there, you might be gone too. You don't know that, but I did know, because the burglars weren't ever supposed to visit my parents' house. They were supposed to kill me. I had to complain. I had to let him know the truth, but how could I? Half a year passed and the secret ate at me. After everything that had happened, I still didn't know how to explain it. Still, I decided it was time to share my curse. Dad, can we talk? Yeah, what's going on? He asked with a worried expression on his face. He knew me well, and he could tell a heavy burden was weighing me down. I started by telling him about my first death, down to the smallest detail. Of course, it matched everything that people had witnessed in the pub that night, even the location of the stab wound. I told him Danny had taken my place in death and that I felt guilty. Naturally, he was skeptical at first, but then I told him about my mother. I didn't spare him any details. I told him where I'd gotten shot, that the door had been broken down, and that there were 2 robbers. Every detail matched perfectly down to the letter. I'm so sorry, Dad. It was my fault. I killed her. He just sat there in silence, processing what I just told him. It wasn't your fault. I was confused. There wasn't a single ounce of anger in his words, only overwhelming empathy. How can you say that? She didn't have to die. He mulled over his next words carefully before speaking. You didn't do anything wrong, Rick. You just went about your life, and these things happened to you. I don't know why you've been brought back, or even how, but you're not to blame for what is done to you. So, you believe me? I asked. He nodded and embraced me in a hug. Suddenly, I wasn't alone in the world anymore. Someone knew what was happening to me. What if it happens again? Then we'll get through it together. He stood by these words even as my next birthday rolled around. That death was more tame. I just slipped in the shower and broke my neck. The last thought that went through my mind as I left the world for a 3rd time was, how fucking cliche. Once again, I awoke in my bed. I called out for my dad, making sure he was still alive, horrified that he might have taken my place. I couldn't even breathe until he came rushing to my side, asking what had happened. I broke my neck, but I'm fine, I think. It took a while before I figured out who had taken my place that time. But once I heard that my boss had died, something broke inside me. He was the kindest man I'd ever met, and just like myself, he'd slipped and broken his neck. That was the final straw. It wasn't some bizarre coincidence I could brush off, nor a premonition. I decided then and there that I couldn't live with the responsibility. I had to put a stop to it, even if it meant giving up my own life. I figured that if I took control over my own fate and killed myself outside of my own birthday, maybe I could prevent more people from dying. First, I left behind a long letter to my dad, explaining why I'd chosen to leave. I couldn't face him in person. I knew he'd just try to talk me out of it, but it was something I had to do. I couldn't allow any more people to die on my behalf. Alas, fate is a fickle bitch. No matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't end my own life. I tried hanging, but the rope broke. Then I tried to shoot myself, but the gun jammed. When that failed, I tried to drive my car into a tree, but I somehow survived that as well. Any attempt was met with failure. All I could do was to wait for my next birthday and let someone die in my place. No matter how many times I tried, I couldn't die. I was a slave to destiny, and it was destroying me. In 2009, I was hit by a drunk driver, and my girlfriend took my place. In 2010, I drowned, and my kind neighbor had to go through that death. In 2011, I died from a brain aneurysm, which ended up killing my aunt. And so on, each year I'd die, and a person close to me would have to take my place. I kept trying to find a way out, but fate wouldn't have it. Years went by, and on the 18th of August 2019, I would die for the 14th time. I'd already fallen sick a week earlier, much to the doctor's confusion. According to each and every laboratory value, I was fine, yet I kept getting sicker. My father and I both knew my time was near, but we also knew I'd be forcefully brought back. Then, at midnight, on my birthday, my heart just gave out. I was jolted awake in my bed, and the sickness was little more than a distant memory. Dad, I called out. No response. I got out of bed and called his name again. I was met with silence. I didn't have to call a 3rd time. I already knew what had happened. I carefully walked into his room, horrified at what I knew would come. He He was dead, just gone from a heart attack. He'd taken my place and I could do nothing to save him. The funeral came and went in a blur. The only noticeable thing was the missing seats from the people who had passed before him. Some of them had lived their own lives and died as nature intended, but a number of them were supposed to live on. Instead, they'd just taken my place in death. I inherited a number of things from my father. Among them, I found a letter addressed to me. It looked rather worn, so I could tell he'd written it a long time ago. Dear Richard, today is your birthday, and it has officially been a year since your mother passed. While I greatly miss her, I'm thankful to still have you around. I know that if she was given the choice, she would want you to live. I feel the same way. We both know that I might one day take your place in death. Never doubt that I would happily give my life if it meant that you may live. You didn't choose this curse, so never blame yourself. Just do what every person is supposed to. Appreciate the people around you, because you never know which day might be their last. I love you, Dad. Since I read that letter, I've been looking for a way out. My father may want me to stay behind, but how can I live on knowing that I'm taking someone's place? I've long since left town, living by myself in a cabin somewhere away from people. Hopefully, if I have no one left that cares for me, people will stop dying. At least until I can figure out not only how to die, but how to actually stay dead. I'm so sorry. That was sad. Alright, we got one more, guys. Whew. Can I make it? That's the real question. Alrighty. Last one. Last one is called The Last Bus. This one's a long one. So I will post these for you. You may read along with me as I read aloud. So, here we go. The first time I caught the night bus was pure chance. I'd heard the legends, of course, we all had. Urban legends are a big thing where I live. I suspect it's partly because I hail from an unremarkable and frankly dull provincial city that has little else going for it. Kids growing up around here don't have much to do, and so their imaginations tend to run wild, with escapism being all the rage. My friends and I were obsessed with urban legends during our formative years, gobbling up the tales whispered in the playgrounds and later posted by anonymous posters on online forums. We found the legends both frightening and exhilarating, bringing excitement to our otherwise boring lives. It would be fair to say that I was quite naive back then. Some of my friends were more cynical, but I truly believed them all. The vanishing hitchhiker of Spencer Street, the South Side Troll Man, and the White Lady of Croft Manor were a few of my favorites. My friends and I took on the role of amateur sleuths, investigating every site and searching for any evidence of these legendary cryptids and otherworldly entities. To my extreme disappointment, we found nothing. No ghosts or ghouls, no monsters, and no signs of anything out of the ordinary. Eventually, I too became cynical, concluding that all such legends were just childish nonsense, and I was wasting my time pursuing them. The last bus was another of the local myths that we'd heard growing up, and I'd assumed it was bullshit like the others. But now I know better. Officially, the last bus out of the city center leaves at midnight from the bus depot on High Street. That's the bus which sensible people catch if they want to get home safely after a night out on the town. The pubs and clubs close at 1 a.m. and the crowds of drunken revelers pile onto the streets, fighting over taxis, queuing up for late-night kebabs, attempting a last-minute hookup, or calling up friends in search for all-night house parties. It's the same chaotic scene every Friday and Saturday night. Usually there are a couple of punch-ups and a few people who will injure themselves by falling over drunk on the pavement. It's all depressingly predictable. The police will be called out, as well as the ambulance crews, and eventually the crowds will disperse as an eerie silence returns to the darkened streets. Then we enter the twilight hours when all sensible and law-abiding citizens are at home, safely tucked up in their beds. After hours, the streets are left to the vulnerable, like the homeless with nowhere else to go, forced to seek shelter in shop door fronts, wrapping their cold bodies in old sleeping bags and praying that they make it through the night. And then there are the predators, the ones that your mother warned you about. The gangs of thugs who patrol the streets, their blood up as they search for a victim to violently attack. And the predatory men who lurk in the shadows watching for vulnerable women who they can prey upon. On a Monday morning, you'll read the stories in the local newspapers. The homeless man beaten to a pulp, the young girl sexually assaulted in a back alley. Police will open investigations and appeal for witnesses. Sometimes they'll catch the perpetrators, other times they won't. You'll have sympathy for the victims, but secretly feel relieved that it didn't happen to you or somebody you know. But in these cases, the culprits are human monsters made of flesh and bone and not the otherworldly fiends I tried to chase. During my cynical years, I believed these human predators were the worst thing out there, that they owned the twilight hours before the dawn. But I was wrong, and now I know the truth. There are far worse things that lurk in the shadows. The first occasion I caught the night bus came during a difficult time for me. I just turned 21 and had split up with my partner for 2 years. Looking back, I now see how the breakup was the best thing for both of us, but at the time I was devastated and so angry. My friends had taken me for a night out on the town in the hope it would cheer me up. A nice idea, but unfortunately it didn't work out that way. I drank way too much, starting on the beers and moving on to shots of hard liquor. We went to a club where I made several embarrassing and unsuccessful attempts to hook up. As if that wasn't bad enough, I then started a fight with my best friend, throwing a punch at him before I got thrown out of the club by the doorman and foolishly decided to walk the streets alone in a drunken stupor. Somehow, I managed to avoid getting beaten up or falling on my face and cracking my head open on the pavement. Instead, I managed to stagger to a bus shelter, not realizing in my inebriated state that the official bus service had finished for the night, and there wouldn't be another one due until morning. I remember laying down to rest on the bench, and I must have passed out because I woke up several hours later and saw the streets were empty. I was all alone, or so I thought. My heart almost jumped out of my chest when I saw the old bus driving down the street towards me, emitting black smoke from its exhaust pipe as it came, its noisy engine interrupting the previous quiet. The vehicle was partially illuminated by the streetlights, although I noted with some concern how the lamps flickered as the bus drove by them. The vehicle looked like a throwback from the 1960s, the kind of ancient tin can on wheels you'd expect to see at a classic car show. Unlike the modern vehicles we're used to, those that glide along the street quietly, this old rust bucket rattled along, noisily looking as if it could break down at any moment, but instead it kept coming, driving down the empty road and coming ever closer to my shelter. I noted how there were no emblems or motifs painted on the side of the bus, and no destination name was shown above its wide front windscreen. The vehicle's exterior was painted all in black, and even the windows were tinted, meaning I could not see who or what was inside. I felt a cold chill run down my spine as I recalled the details I'd heard about the last bus legend, one of those I'd read and studied during my youth. The vehicle I was seeing before me matched the description of the coach in the stories. The phantom bus that appears on an abandoned street in the early hours, offering lifts to the weary and needy. I came close to panic in that moment, wondering whether I was dreaming or suffering from a paranoid delusion. I'd spent so much of my youth chasing these legends, searching for any evidence that could prove the existence of something outside of our own reality. But now that the truth was staring me in the face, a big part of me wanted to pick up the sticks and run. But I didn't. I don't know whether I was frozen to the spot with fear or if my curiosity got the better of me, but I held my ground and waited for the bus to come to me. I stood up on shaking feet as the coach pulled in beside my shelter, and despite the amount of alcohol I'd consumed, I suddenly felt quite sober. It seemed to take forever for the vehicle to park and for the creaking old door to swing open. When it did, I was confronted by a friendly middle-aged man wearing a neat blue uniform while he sat behind the wheel, driving his bus to an unspecified location. He smiled down at me, his eyes twinkling in an amicable and welcoming fashion. Then he opened his mouth and spoke in a soft, almost fatherly tone of voice, saying, "Good evening, my friend. Are you coming on board?" I'd heard about the enigmatic driver before, but nevertheless his appearance and whole demeanor took me off guard. I struggled to find the words to respond, stuttering my way through my reply. Where will you take me?" I inquired nervously. "Home," the driver responded with a reassuring smile. "I'll take you home, eventually, but life isn't about the destination, it's about the journey. Sometimes you need to take a leap of faith. So, what do you say, my young friend? Will you ride with us?" I'll admit to being scared in that moment. Terrified, in fact. Somehow I realized how important this was, how the decision I made right then could shape the rest of my life. I didn't know exactly what would await me if I got on board, but I had a good idea, and it was terrifying. But if I walked away, I would never discover the truth, and so I took a deep breath, plucked up my courage, and stepped onto the bus, seeing the driver smile as the door shut firmly behind me. When I saw the bus driver up close, I sensed something sinister about him and instantly regretted my decision. But by then it was too late. That was the first time I rode the night bus. Over the years, I've been on it 3 times in total, living to tell my tale on each occasion. Catching the phantom bus isn't as easy as you would imagine. There's no set of rules that you can follow and no set time or location. I don't know whether it's sheer chance or if the bus itself chooses its passengers. I have, however, been able to piece together common threads, using both my experiences and those of others who've made the journey. We have an online forum which we use to tell our stories and exchange information. It's an issue of safety as much as anything else. The night bus can be lethal if you don't keep your wits about you. Having accumulated this knowledge over the last number of years, I will now share it with you here. Once you step on board the bus, you'll see rows of hardback seats stretching back to the rear of the vehicle's interior. There's nothing unusual about this, at least not at first glance. You'll see other passengers too, but you mustn't engage with them at this point, and don't look at them in the eye. Take a seat on an empty bench somewhere towards the front of the bus. Doesn't really matter where exactly. They will come to you in their own time. The journey itself can last for hours, or at least that's what it will seem like when you're on board. You can see out the window from the inside and look upon the scenery, such as it is. Initially, you will see familiar sights, city center streets, buildings, and businesses that you'll recognize. Nevertheless, you'll soon realize that something isn't quite right with the scene. The streets will be totally abandoned with no traffic or pedestrians anywhere to be seen, and there won't be any businesses open or lights emanating from anywhere along the road. But the further you drive out from the city center, the more bizarre the sights you will encounter. Soon, the tidy streets and well-maintained buildings will give way to urban decay, crumbling structures and ruins, like those of a lost city forgotten by time. Eventually, the bus will leave the city behind and enter what appears to be a dense forest. The narrow road you will follow will be shrouded in darkness, with only illumination coming from the vehicle's bright headlights. If you glance into the woods on either side of the road, you will occasionally catch a glimpse of shadows moving behind the tree line. Strange figures and unidentified animals with glowing red eyes glaring through the darkness. You'll see these unnerving creatures for only the briefest of seconds as the bus drives through, and then they'll be gone. At first you'll think it's just your fertile imagination playing tricks on you, but deep down you'll know that there is something evil lurking in those woods. By this point in the journey, it should become clear that you're no longer in the realm of the living. I don't know where the bus takes you, but I do know it's not wise to stare out the windows for too long. What lurks out there can drive you mad. And besides, your focus should be on those inside the bus, as they pose the more immediate threat. My fellow online sleuths and I think of the passengers as lost souls. It seems certain that they are no longer part of the world of the living. There's something lacking in them, an important piece that is missing. Once you talk to them, and they will engage with you whether you want them to or not, you'll see the sadness in their empty, dead eyes. They want to latch onto you because you have what they want. Life. That's why it's so important that you follow the rules. Don't let them get inside of your head, whatever you do. There are 6 entities you're likely to encounter once you set foot upon the bus, all of whom have their own unique traits and tricks which they'll attempt to use against you. Based on the shared experiences of our forum members, I have pieced together a description of each one of these otherworldly entities. First, there's the driver, whose physical description I've already covered. The driver's first job is to get you on board. That's why he'll appear to be so friendly and welcoming, enticing you to take a ride on his bus. However, once the door shuts behind you and the bus starts moving, you'll see the driver's smile falter ever so slightly as he breaks eye contact and focuses on the road. Despite this, the driver is a benign figure who plays a small but important role in the events which follow. His job from this point onward is simply to drive, and he does keep his promise to you. He will bring you home eventually, assuming you don't fall foul of any of the spirits during the drive. Like I said, the journey will seem to last for hours, but when he drops you off on your home street back in our realm, no time will have passed whatsoever. He lets you off, smiling once again and saying, "Have a nice evening, hope to see you again soon." And you'll be left standing on the pavement outside of your own home, bewildered and still in a state of shocked disbelief as you watch the phantom bus drive down the road before it inexplicably vanishes at the end of your street. After the driver, the first passenger you're likely to notice is the party girl. This is an attractive young woman who appears to be in her early to mid-20s. Her physical appearance will change on each occasion. Sometimes her hair will be brunette and other times blonde. Likewise, her skin complexion can either be pale or dark, depending upon the beholder. What's consistent is how she's made up and dressed, donning a cocktail dress and high heels and carrying a designer handbag. Her fragrance is sweet and enticing, but you may also smell a hint of alcohol on her breath. You'll note how her mascara has run, indicating that she's been crying. Nevertheless, there's something in her deep and expressive eyes which will draw you in. An inner beauty and vulnerability that plays on your emotions. It's worth noting that you will be attracted to the young woman in spite of your gender or usual sexual preferences. You'll be unable to take your eyes off her and will feel compelled to take a seat close to her. The party girl will engage with you during the early stages of the journey, distracting you from the bizarre sights outside of the bus's windows. At first, she'll be flirtatious and fun, asking you about yourself and talking about her night out, but soon the conversation will take on a darker tone, as the girl tells you about a tragic event from her past, childhood abuse, a violent ex-partner, or the death of a loved one. The story will vary each time, but will always be one of sadness and suffering. Your heart will go out to her, even if you're not usually an empathetic person. Once she's told you her woeful tale, the young woman will ask you to go home with her to give her some comfort. You'll be tempted, but under no circumstances should you agree to go with her. It's critical that you remember what she is and what she really wants from you. My advice is to politely decline her offer without causing her undue suffering. The party girl may be a lost soul, but by all accounts she still feels human emotions. She won't be angry when you reject her, but instead will sob softly into her hands. You'll feel guilty, but you must move on and switch seats, leaving the poor girl to her misery. The next passenger you'll encounter sits a couple of rows behind the party girl. We call her the OAP, or the pensioner. She's an elderly woman, probably in her 80s. Her white hair and curls, wearing a shawl and a heavy winter coat, and with a shopping cart on wheels parked underneath her seat. Her face is wrinkled and the perfume she wears is quite overbearing, but the OAP has kind eyes and a sweet, motherly smile. She'll remind you of an elderly relative, like a grandmother or a great aunt, and you will feel an affection towards her. A woman of her age and appearance is the last person you'd expect to find riding a night bus during the early hours of the morning, and yet here she is. Another is a lost, trapped soul on a journey that never ends. The OAP will speak with you in a kindly, wholesome fashion, asking about your life and your family, while also entertaining you with anecdotes from her long and interesting life. You truly will feel at ease talking with her, but you mustn't forget what she really is. The conversation will end with the woman asking you to accompany her home to help her with the shopping or something like that. She'll offer to prepare you something to eat, your favorite meal or snack, whatever that may be, and she'll offer to put you up for the night. Again, you'll be tempted, but you must say no. On this occasion, it doesn't actually matter how politely you refuse her offer. Whatever you say or do, she will react with absolute fury, screaming every obscenity under the sun at her as her face screws up with anger. It's the last thing you would expect from a seemingly sweet old lady, but this is what will happen. As soon as she launches into her hateful tirade, you should leave your seat, move further down the bus, and you would be wise not to engage with her again for the rest of your journey. The next passenger you'll meet is a scruffy middle-aged man known as the drunkard. He sits close to the back of the bus and is perhaps the type you would expect to find on a late-night service. I wouldn't recommend sitting too close to the drunkard, if only because he smells pretty bad, his breath stinking of alcohol and cigarettes. You'll note how his old clothes are soiled and torn, and his unkempt beard will be badly matted. You probably won't wish to engage with him, but the drunkard will begin a conversation with you regardless, and against your better judgment, you'll get drawn in. The drunkard will turn out to be surprisingly intelligent and insightful, seeking to educate you on such matters as religion, philosophy, and scientific theory. He'll tell you a story in the form of a parable or fable, one with a dark twist to it. When I first met the drunk, he recounted to me the tale of the frog and the scorpion, one that demonstrates the cruel and destructive nature of life. Next, he'll remove a silver hip flask from his inside jacket pocket and offer you a drink. Regardless of your alcoholic preference, you'll be tempted to take a sip. The drink will smell so sweet and inviting, but of course, you must refuse him. After you turn down the drink, the drunkard will shoot you an angry look before shaking his head and saying, "You're a damn fool, stupid little child. You have no idea what you're dealing with." This is your cue to move on. Now, You'll notice how the first 3 passengers are trying to draw you in, using whatever charms or supernatural powers they have at their disposal. Their ultimate goal is to trick you into leaving the bus. Needless to say, you must not do this, not if you want to make it home. Nobody knows what exactly happens to those who fall into one of their traps. We do know that several members of our forum have vanished without a trace over the years, and my city has a long history of unexplained disappearances. The 4th passenger is different from the rest, however. He's a young male who sits on the back row whilst listening to headphones linked up to an 80s style Walkman. We call him Headphones Guy, and it seems all he does is listen to music, his eyes closed as he taps his foot to the beat. The Headphones Guy will not attempt to engage with you or even acknowledge your presence. That's not to say he isn't dangerous, however. There was a member of our group who had a run-in with the guy. To be fair, it wasn't unprovoked. Feeling bold, my friend got right up in the passenger's face, waving his hand and clicking his fingers in an attempt to gain the spirit's attention. When this failed, he foolishly grabbed the guy's headphones, physically pulling them off his head. Predictably, Headphones Guy didn't react well to this violation. In an instant, he jumped up from the chair, lashing out with his fist and knocking his assailant down with one punch. My friend remembers a sharp, intense pain in the back of his head before he blacked out. The next thing he remembers is waking up in his own bed the next morning with a broken nose and a nasty gash on the back of his head. He also found a note in his jeans pocket, crudely written on the back of an old bus ticket in what looked like dried blood. And it read, "Do that again and I'll rip your fucking head off." Unsurprisingly, my friend never rode the night bus again. I don't know what the Headphone Guy deal is, but my advice is to leave him well enough alone. So at this point, you're probably wondering why one would wish to catch the night bus at all, given how you'll be transported to a terrifying alternative reality and encounter otherworldly spirits who wish to trap you there. Well, the short answer is that no sane person would, bar a handful of crazed urban adventurers and amateur paranormal investigators such as myself. Most of those who've boarded the platform, the Phantom Coach, have done so by accident. Not really realizing what they were getting themselves into until it was too late. So, most of those who ride the bus once have no inclination to do so again. But those of us who do seek out the Phantom Coach for a second, third, or in my case, 4th occasion, well, we have our reasons. One reason above all others, in fact, we want to see the Harbinger and ask him our one permitted question. I'll regret my first ride on the bus for the rest of my days. Although I was drunk, I had enough wits about me to see off the various tricks used by, the ghouls, but I wasn't prepared for him. The Harbinger is the only passenger who isn't already riding on the bus when you first get on. He comes later, after you've negotiated your way through the ghostly entities you think the worst is behind you. The first thing you'll notice is the burning cross mounted on top of a darkened hillside, overlooking the road on the left-hand side. I remember the first time I saw that foreboding symbol and the immense fear I felt, as I knew something bad was happening. A moment after I spotted the cross, I was shocked to see the bus was slowing down, pulling over to the side of the road and parking up in a lay-by. Next, the driver operated the swing door at the front of the bus, opening it to whatever lay on the other side. The terror almost overwhelmed me as I thought of the horrors that lurked within the Shadowlands, of the creatures and demons hiding in the haunted woods and hillsides. I recall looking to the other passengers, somehow hoping these devious spirits would offer me some protection from whatever was coming, but instead their heads were down, as they all maintained a solemn silence. Realizing I was on my own, I glanced out the window to witness a sight which chilled me to my very bones. There was a small, covered shelter by the roadside, almost covered by overgrown vegetation and only just visible in the dim light. And within this seemingly abandoned bus shelter stood a tall, hooded figure, a sinister individual with his face covered and his considerable frame hidden underneath a long and dark robe. The mystery man remained still and silent, although I soon spotted the animal by his side, a large black dog that snarled aggressively through a snout filled with razor-sharp teeth as it glared at me with hungry and predatory eyes, only a thin glass pane separating me from him. I imagine the hound breaking loose, ascending the steps and charging down the aisle before burying its razor-sharp fangs into my soft flesh. Thankfully, the dog's master retained control of his beast, although I was far from out of danger. I also noticed how hot and stifling it suddenly became, as an almost unbearable wave of heat hit me. Meanwhile, the bus remained parked for what seemed like an eternity, its door ajar as the driver waited to see whether his passenger would get on. Now, I've since learned that the hooded figure we call the Harbinger will do one of two things at this point. Either he will remain rooted to the spot until eventually the driver will say something like, "Well, not tonight then," before he closes the door and drives on. From what I've been able to gather from both my experiences and those of my contemporaries, this is what happens most of the time. 2 times out of 3, the Harbinger won't step out from the bus shelter, and that'll be the end of it. But sometimes he will step forward, marching through the mud in his heavy boots while dragging his hellhound along on a leash, and he'll come on board the bus, prompting the driver to say, "Good evening, sir. Trust you'll have a pleasant journey." The Harbinger will not answer. Instead, gliding down the aisle with his faithful mutt following behind him, he'll take a seat near the front of the bus, pulling down his hood to reveal what lies underneath. To this day, I can't fully explain what I saw in that terrifying moment. It seemed like there was only a dark void where his face should be, with 2 burning orbs instead of eyes. He had no mouth that I could see, and so by rights, he shouldn't have been able to speak, and yet he did, calling out to me in a booming, godlike voice which echoed through the hollow interior of the bus. "Come to me, mortal child," he ordered. "Come sit with me so we may speak." Now, as you can imagine, I was utterly terrified in this moment, so much as that I thought I might pass out. But for reasons I can't explain, I obeyed the Harbinger's orders, feeling like I physically could not resist him, and as if my legs were no longer under my control. I remember looking to the other passengers as I walked down the aisle, hoping that one of them could help me. But each of the 4 kept their heels down as they muttered in unison, reciting a prayer in a language I could not understand. It became obvious that the Harbinger held power over these lost souls, and they were all trapped under his spell. Perhaps they were once like us, falling victim to the phantom bus and the Harbinger's godlike powers. In any event, they offered me no assistance in that fateful moment, and I soon realized I was completely at the Harbinger's mercy. I involuntarily took a seat in the row directly behind the Harbinger. His head turned in an unnatural way to face me, as his dog snarled aggressively in my direction, but thankfully resisted the urge to bite me in the leg. I can't really describe how the Harbinger smelled, other than to say he stank of death. The fiery orbs he had instead of eyes stared right at me, and I couldn't look away no matter how much I tried. I felt like I was on fire, my soul burning under his hateful glare. In my state of abject terror, I imagined what this monster might do to me. I reckoned he could kill me with ease, but this was the least of my fears. Instead, I believed I may become like the others, another anonymous lost soul riding this damn bus for all eternity. In any event, I was powerless to do anything in that moment, other than remain frozen to my seat, waiting for the Harbinger to speak. Despite his absence of eyes, somehow I could tell he was looking down on me, that he considered me with total contempt, like I was something he'd stepped on. To this day, I don't know whether he was speaking out loud or if his booming voice was only in my head. Either way, I found myself totally transfixed as he spoke his words. "I see another mere mortal has found its way into my realm," he began. I assumed he was referring to me. "I'll confess to having little time for your contemptible and weak race. Nevertheless, I must respect the bravery of the odd individual such as yourself. Not many have the courage to come to this dark place. For this reason, I will grant you safe passage, and I will answer you one question. Ask me what you will, mere mortal, and I will impart to you my infinite knowledge. Now, this is a moment I've replayed over and over again in my mind over the years. I literally could have asked the Harbinger anything. The winning lottery numbers, who killed JFK, the meaning of life. He sees and knows everything, and the possibilities are limitless. One of the guys on our forum asked the Harbinger how he would die and was told that his vices would kill him within 6 months. Well, this guy was an addict, but he laughed off the Harbinger's warning and continued using. 6 months later, he was dead from an overdose. And then there was a young woman who, at the time of her encounter with the Harbinger, was stuck in an abusive and controlling relationship. She asked the entity what would happen if she stayed with her asshole boyfriend. Well, she was told that her life would end unless she broke off the relationship. This proved to be the motivation she needed to leave him, and about a year later, the bastard was arrested for murdering another girl and ultimately sentenced to life in prison. But, of course, I didn't know any of this at the time. I felt nothing but pure terror as I sat frozen in my seat, quaking in my boots as the Harbinger glared down upon me with disgust. In that chilling moment, I could only think of one question to ask, which I stuttered out from my trembling lips. What are you? I swore I could hear the creature scoff with contempt before he gave his answer. My poor child, he bellowed. Alas, you humans will never fully comprehend what I am and what I represent. Nevertheless, I owe you an answer, and so I shall explain in the simplest of terms. I am the past, the present, and the future. I see all from where I stand, and yet I have sworn not to intervene in the mortal realm. He paused momentarily, turning his burning orbs towards the darkened landscape outside the window. This world you see before me is my kingdom, my domain. I offer sanctuary to those who have nowhere else to go, giving a home to those lost souls trapped between the mortal and eternal realms. Perhaps you will come here one day and become a permanent resident of my dark realm. Or perhaps not. You could have inquired after your ultimate fate, of course, but you chose not to do so. But I've answered your one permitted question and fulfilled my obligation. And now, my child, I will bid you farewell. With that, he rose from his chair and summoned his hound. Gliding down the aisle as he made for the exit, I was flabbergasted and in a state of shock. I still had so many questions to ask, and I opened my mouth without thinking. Wait, I called after him, instantly regretting my decision to speak. The Harbinger turned sharply, his orb-like eyes burning ever fiercer, his hound growling as it bared its sharp teeth, pulling on its lead as it tried to get at me. When the Harbinger spoke again, his tone became angry and threatening. Heed my warning, you damn fool. I have tolerated your presence in my realm thus far, but do not test my patience. I can inflict pain upon you which goes beyond your worst nightmares, and I will not hesitate to do so if you break my rules again. I felt all the blood drained from my face. My whole body shook uncontrollably as sheer terror overcame me. Needless to say, I did not utter another word. Instead, I watched on in shocked awe as the Harbinger glided down the aisle, dragging his snarling hellhound with him. The driver brought the bus to a slow halt to allow the godlike creature to disembark. I began to feel pangs of relief as I thought my ordeal was nearly over, but there was one last twist to his macabre episode. As the Harbinger stepped off the bus, my fellow passengers suddenly shot up from their seats, all simultaneously turning in my direction. To my horror, I saw how their eyes had turned jet black and their mouths were open wide, revealing gaping black holes. It seemed like they were all trying to scream, yet no sound was emitted. And then I saw what was lurking in the darkened woods on either side of the road. Hundreds of fiery red eyes emerging from the tree line, belonging to unholy beasts that howled like wolves in the night. Everyone focused upon our bus. I screamed out in terror, fearing that the Harbinger had changed his mind and was summoning his hellish minions to tear me to pieces. The howling rapidly increased in volume, becoming so loud that I was near deafened. What happened next remains something of a blur in my memory. I recall the horrific din, and the pressure built up inside my head until I thought my skull would explode. Suddenly, there was a blinding flash of light, forcing me to hide my eyes underneath my hands. A moment later, I opened my eyes again, only to discover that the beasts had vanished, as had my ghoulish fellow passengers. I was on my own inside the bus, just me and the driver, as we continued down that lonely stretch of road. I have very little recollection of the rest of that journey. I don't think it was much longer before we left the dark realm and returned to the city streets I knew and recognized. When we arrived at my home street, I could not believe it, thinking this was another trick. I sat still in my seat for some time, until eventually I needed to be prompted by the driver, who called out to me again, saying, "You're stopped, my friend. Come on now, please. I can't wait here all night." With some trepidation, I walked down the aisle and stepped off the bus, feeling the cool, fresh air against my skin as I returned to the realm of the living. I recalled the driver wishing me good luck, good night, and saying he would see me again before he drove away. So, that's my story. But it's not quite the end of it. You may well ask why I didn't abandon my obsession with the Phantom Bus after my terrifying encounter. Well, for a long time I did, but in the end my curiosity got the better of me. I don't like the uncertainty of life, of not knowing what lays before me. I used to think that's just the way it is, but now I know better. The Harbinger's out there, and he can provide the answers I need. I won't waste my opportunity a second time. For years, I have chased the bus, and I've caught it further 2 times. On both occasions, I boarded and avoided the trap set by the ghoulish passengers, and both times I waited for the Harbinger to board, but he would not move from his shelter, and so my hopes were frustrated. It's been extremely disheartening, but I will not give up. Tonight, I seek out the bus once again, and I'll keep doing so until the Harbinger answers my call. I know the risks. One night, I may board the Phantom coach and never make it home. But nevertheless, I need to do this. I must know the truth, no matter what the cost. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a bus to catch. And that's it. Whew. That was really cool. I like that a lot. That was a lot of fun. Oh. How about I don't look like that? And I'm going to take another sip of water. Because, well, of course. Thank you. Let's hope my stuff works this time. Are you gonna do it? Transition! Yeah! Of course, I am happy to do so. Yep, it was a good stream. I had a good time. I'm glad that you guys had a good time as well. Whew. I am tired though. Not tired like sleepy, but like reading 4 stories like almost back to back to back is kind of exhausting. So yeah, it's a whole ordeal in and of itself. Aw, thanks. Yeah, so for those of you guys who missed my like avatar reveal, whatever, this is it for now until I can get a model that like kind of suits my character image a little bit better. But yeah, we almost went for 3 hours. That's crazy. But I'm glad everyone had a good time. I hope that you enjoyed the stories that I picked out tonight. They were all pretty good. We had a couple heavy ones. We had a couple of really interesting ones. Dark that ended on a weird note. I really liked the night bus one. That was pretty cool. I'm gonna have to get a hold of the guy who wrote that and be like, hey, can I read this story? It'd be pretty cool if you'd let me do that. But yeah, so yep. Well, I'm glad I could do that for you guys. I'm glad everyone had a good time. It was fun though. I had a good time. That was definitely fun. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, so, oh, this is a little much. Let me boost this up a little bit. There we go. Okay, cool. But yeah, so, I did. I liked the night bus story a lot. That was a really good story. I enjoyed it a lot. It had a good lesson to it too. I wonder if he'll ever meet the Harbinger again. I hope he does, because asking a question, what are you, seems like such a waste to me when he could ask anything. Like, you run into a being that has infinite knowledge and you're suddenly too scared to like do anything, and you're just like, what are you? What are you? What is your existence? And it's like, bruh, for real? That's the best you can come up with? Give me a break. But who's to say that I wouldn't ask the same thing in the moment, you know? Like, there's a good chance that I could like freak out and be like, oh no, what do I say? Granted, the other ghost would have freaked me out more. A void, like a being with a void for a head, probably wouldn't freak me out as badly. I would actually, no, the dog would scare me more. Yeah, I think the dog would have scared me more, to be fair. Why are my things not working? No. Okay, there we go. It's like everything's breaking, guys. Why? Okay, there we go. I needed to stop blushing. I don't know what I would ask, to be honest. I definitely wouldn't ask when I would die, because nobody wants to know that. You'd be counting down to the days of your death and then, you know, freaking out about, oh my God, I only have this much time to do this, and oh my God, I only have this much time to do that. And then it's just, you're fretting over the time that you have versus living your life. You're too busy fretting over life versus living your life. Probably, yeah. That does sound kind of Dark Soulsy, actually. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I would ask. Honestly, I probably would ask for the lottery number. I definitely would ask for the Powerball number. Let's be real. I would 100% ask for the Powerball number. Because while money may not be able to buy happiness, it fucking buys comfort, let me tell you. And that's what I would be comfortable. I would stop working. I'd do YouTube full time for fucking sure. But yeah, if I'm being completely honest, I would totally 100% ask for the Powerball number. Because $700 million is a lot of money. Hello, Cassandra. Nice to see you. But yeah, for sure, I would 100% ask for the lottery numbers. Just because bitch got bills to pay. You know what I'm saying? You get what you feeling me? But yeah, like I said, money may not be able to buy happiness, but it buys comfort, and I would be significantly less. Like, and here's the thing too, I'm not even stressed out at my current job. Like, I could have been way more stressed out, you know? But like, I'm not, compared to like my other job. But still, I would love to quit my job and like retire, like literally fucking retire. And like, I would retire and fucking just do YouTube and write books and buy like a house and make sure my parents live comfortable in their, you know, final days, whatever. But yeah, pretty much that's how I'd be for fucking sure. Oh, the cure for cancer. Of course. But yeah, I think that's it, guys, though. It's been fun. I had a good time. I hope you guys had a good time too. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Yeah, so just get used to this avatar, I guess, for the time being, until I can find another one that's closer and more suitable to like my actual avatar that is closest to me with the red hair. But in the meantime, I don't know, this girl's kind of okay, that was my internet, guys. Pardon me for the hiccup. It's doing that bullshit again where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, so thank you for stopping by. Thank you for enjoying the stories. I hope you all had a great time. Everyone stay safe out there. Stay hydrated. And stay weird, I guess. Is that a thing? Yeah, stay weird. Definitely stay weird. Definitely stay weird. But I think I'm gonna go, just because, you know, it's late and I need to relax and rest my voice. But I hope everyone had a great time. I had a good time. And I will catch you guys in the next stream. And until next time,